I critique when things deserve to be critiqued. This is the philosophy that I try to uphold. Critique that which deserves criticism, expose that which deserves to be exposed, but also commend when things deserve to be commended. So Israel fighting terrorists, I commend Israel for fighting terrorists. Now, there is a side in Israel that is very dark. And what do I mean by that? I think we all know what I'm talking about here. There is an element in Jewish Israeli society that is vicious, violent, bigoted, very anti-Christian, and very racist. And there are a lot of people like this in Israel. Now, there's a ton of people, and I would argue that there's a ton more people who are not like this in Israel. But they are people in Israel who are bloodthirsty. I mean, this is just a fact, and people in Israel will acknowledge this. I'll give you an example of what I mean when I talk about this division, this struggle, this rift within Israeli society between people who are extremists and people who are not extremist. So back in the 1980s, there was a horrific slaughter that took place, a horrific massacre that took place in Lebanon, in two refugee camps in Lebanon called Sabra and Shatila. Sabra and Shatila, they were Palestinian refugee camps, and they were also places where you had the PLO, and the PLO was at war against the Lebanese Phalange, or the Phalangist. The Phalangists were Lebanese Catholic nationalists. Okay, so when you when you see these ultra-nationalist Catholic trads, the Lebanese Catholics were hardcore nationalists, ultra-nationalists. Now, the patriarch of the Lebanese Catholic Church, which is known as the Maronite Church, was against the nationalism, but there were many members of the clergy who were supporters of it, and this was a huge problem. So there was a war between the Catholic Maronite nationalist and the PLO. The PLO did not just consist of Islamists. It also had people who were just Palestinian nationalist, atheist, socialists. And my dad will tell you this because my dad was a part of the PLO. And so, he knew people in the West Bank who were socialists, who weren't even religious. So eventually, there was an agreement made between the Maronites and the PLO, and the agreement was that the PLO would leave the refugee camps, leave Lebanon, and that the Maronites would not hurt the civilian population in the refugee camps. Well, the PLO left, which meant that the refugees had no defense, and the Maronites broke the treaty. They were treaty breakers. Truce breakers, and they decided that they wanted to indulge in sadism and cruelty, and so they entered the refugee camps, and they butchered and raped thousands of civilians. It is one of the most horrific things that you will ever read about. The Israelis supported the Maronites. They supported the Lebanese ultranationalists, whose ideology was scarily akin to Nazism. They believed in creating a pure, quote-unquote, Phoenician state. The Phoenicians were the ancient peoples of Lebanon, and so they saw themselves as Phoenicians. And the way that they killed was just, it was a nightmare. 3 days of horror, 3 days of butchery. And the Israelis supported the Maronites, and they knew that the Maronites wanted to do this massacre, and they allowed it to happen. And there were IDF soldiers around the refugee camps as the slaughter was happening. And there were IDF soldiers who knew exactly what was happening. And they were, believe it or not, they were Israeli soldiers who did not like what was happening at all. But they were told not to intervene. And there is a story that I heard in which an Israeli soldier rescued a Palestinian woman, and I believe her children. and he told the woman, "Run, run!" And he pointed to the exit for her, because they were Israeli soldiers who knew there was butchery happening, and they didn't like it. And see, and this is the problem that I have with the people who are always anti-Israel. They can't see good things that Israelis do and have done for Palestinians. They refuse to see this. They just want to see the negative. They just want to see the Israelis as monsters. And this is just not reality. The Israelis were actually, the majority of Israelis were against what the Israeli government did to the Palestinians in their support for the Maronites in the Sabra and Shatila massacre. The Israeli government knew that the massacre was happening. They were watching it happen, and they didn't want to stop it. They didn't want to stop it because they saw the slaughter as something that would be beneficial for them. Kill enough Palestinians to just crush any sort of Palestinian threat against Israel. This was the idea, I think. And once the news broke out that this took place, the massacre, not just the massacre, but the fact that the Israeli government enabled the massacre, once this fact was known to the Israeli public, there was a demonstration against the Israeli government that was, I don't think it was anything like what has, I don't think it was like any other demonstration that has occurred in Israel. 1 million Israelis took to the streets. Yes, you read that right. You heard that right. You can read about this yourself if you don't believe me. 1 million Israelis took to the streets against the Israeli government in support of the Palestinians who were butchered by these sadistic, trad Catholic nationalists. Those people were marching for the Palestinians, and they were not Muslims, they were Israelis. So to sit here and say, well, it's all evil and they're all evil Zionists, this is a bunch of nonsense. There is a division in Israel between people who are moderate and people who are decent, and people who are vicious and racist and bigoted. And this division, we definitely saw this division manifest in all of the massive demonstrations against Netanyahu. There's a huge opposition against Netanyahu. And there was an opposition against Netanyahu. Why was there opposition against Netanyahu? Because the religious faction in Netanyahu's political bloc wants to impose religious law in Israel. And one thing that they want to impose is the prohibition of non-kosher foods being brought into hospitals during the Passover holiday. They don't want anyone to bring in non-kosher foods into a hospital during Passover. So pork, food that hasn't been blessed by a rabbi, basically. Not even just pork. I'm not even talking about just pork or meat and dairy mixed together. I mean, literally any food that wasn't blessed by a rabbi, you can't bring it into the hospital. That's the kind of stuff they want to impose. And that would hurt Christians, and this would affect Muslims as well. And so all these people demonstrating on the streets against Israel becoming a theocracy, these people who oppose Netanyahu want religious freedom for Christians and Muslims. But then you have the religious zealots in Israel who want to restrict religious freedom and who want to impose Jewish law in society, and they want to make Israel into a theocracy. And so there was immense, intense opposition against Netanyahu about this. And if you want to get into the whole conspiracy side of this, if Israel allowed for this attack to happen, maybe it was because Netanyahu wanted to just get rid of this this whole opposition movement against him. He by making a war which would act as a perfect distraction away from the negative attention on him, away from the hatred against him by the opposition. But that's a different issue. there is an ugly side in Israel. There is an ugly side in Israel, and it's not the totality of the Israeli population, but nonetheless it's there and it is substantial. And the ugly side is bigoted, racist, also very, very anti-Christian, and they spit on Christians and they attack Christians, and they're just evil. They're Pharisees, zealots, Sadducees. They are the part of the spiritual legacy of those ancient movements, those ancient establishments. And here's the thing. Those people who are very bigoted and very racist, they are extremely anti-Arab. And so they want to bolster their ideology. They want to bolster their position. This violence against Israelis that was done, this massacre of Israelis that was done, serves as the perfect story by which these far-right zealots can bolster their position and gain more and more ground and to gain more and more support in their country. So with the rise of Islamic terrorism, really the rise of violence against Israelis by Islamic terrorists, you will also have the rise of Jewish extremism. And I've talked about this before. I talked about this in a prior video. What did I say in that prior video? Who's having the most kids in Israel? Who's having the most kids? It's not the moderates. And this is the dangerous phenomena that is occurring in Israel. One of the dangerous phenomena. But the dangerous phenomena is the rise of extremism. What's enabling it is the low birth rates amongst the people who are mild and moderate. Because the people who are mild and moderate, they say, well, these religious fanatics, they're growing in numbers. And my response is, well, have more kids. Have more kids, raise them up to be political moderates as you like, and you won't have to worry about this so much. But the reality is that the moderates have 1 to 2 kids per family, and the religious fanatics, the Jewish religious fanatics, the ultra-nationalists, they're having 10, 13 kids. They're having more kids than the Muslims. And the Palestinians, the Arab Israelis as they are called, they're also having a lot of kids, but they're having the second highest number of births. So it's the ultra-Orthodox Jews are having the most kids, then the Palestinians, and then the moderates are having the least amount of kids. Which means that the moderates in Israel, the politically moderate in Israel, are losing the demographic war. And the sides that are having the most kids are the most extreme sides. The most extreme being the Islamists and the Jewish fanatics. They're having the most kids. So you have this increase in population of amongst the fanatic populations, or the religious zealot populations, and then you have this underpopulation taking place amongst the moderates. So it's a very dangerous combination. What is happening? The two most extreme sides are having the most kids, and they're winning the demographic war. So their numbers are growing, which means that the prospect for extreme violence is not, it's sticking around. It's not going anywhere. And so what happens when you have Islamic extremism showing its ugly face with all of its cruelty and violence and sadism, and at the same time, coinciding with this, you have the rise of Jewish fanaticism. And the Jewish fanatics, the way that they work is very effective. And what do I mean by that? The Muslims, see the difference between the Muslim fanatics and the Jewish fanatics is that the Muslim fanatic, the Islamists, the terrorists, will act without provocation. They have an opportunity to go into a festival full of a bunch of Jewish people who are taking magic mushrooms, and yes, that's what they were doing. They'll go in there, they'll kill all those people. They have an opportunity to kill Israeli soldiers, they'd do it. Even though that Israeli soldier could be the nicest guy in the world, that if they have the opportunity to take a soldier's life, they do it. They do it without provocation. The Jewish extremist waits. And this is one thing I've noticed over the years. All of the violence done against Palestinians by Jewish extremists was after some kind of terrorist attack. This is from my own observation. So, for example, in 2021, there were anti-Arab pogroms. You had Jewish extremists attacking Arabs. But this was after a terrorist attack. So now you have the biggest terrorist attack in Israel's history. There's been nothing like this. People are saying, well, Yom Kippur, but that was a war between official militaries. This is a terrorist attack in which you have a huge massacre of Israeli civilians, right? Nearly 1,000, probably 1,000, maybe even more than that. Who knows what the next update on the death count will be. And so with such extreme violence, the Jewish extremists now have more material, more ammunition to use to strengthen their position and to gain more followers. And as Jewish extremism increases, violence against Christians will also increase, because the Christians in Israel, they tend to be Semitic Christians. By that I mean Arab-speaking Christians, okay, Assyrian, and the like. And the Christians in Israel, who are mainly Catholic and Eastern Orthodox, they also tend to be very critical of Israel and very critical of Zionism. They're against Zionism. So, because they're against Zionism and because they're critical of Israel, the Jewish extremists will say, these Christians hate Jews, just like those Muslims do. And so violence against Christians is going to increase. I mean, this is just an inevitable reality. It's a very sad reality, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable. And so these people will kill Christians. They will slaughter Christians. I mean, this whole thing is it's going to have, it's, what I'm trying to say is that this whole thing is not going to stop at just Israel versus Islamic terrorist. This situation, I believe, is going to, it's moving into a ripple effect that goes different directions, not just, Israeli government fighting terrorists. It's going to lead to other things, the rise of Jewish extremism, and it's already rising. But the further rise of Jewish extremism, violence against Christians, because, the Christians are Arabs and Arabs are bad. And also, violence against Arabs, that's not justified. We can expect this to happen. We saw this in 2021. So, I mean, the future is very bleak and ugly. The future is very bleak and ugly. And at the root of it all, at the root of this all, is the reverence for Jerusalem, which is not biblical, by the way. A lot of American Christians, they fall into this drug of revering Jerusalem as if it's this sacred city. For a city that's called the Holy Land, it's a pretty violent place. I mean, I'm ethnically Palestinian, but I was only there when I was an infant, so that doesn't really count. And I've never had any interest of going to the Holy Land. And people have asked me, Ted, don't you want to go to the Holy Land? And I'm like, nope, don't want to go there. I don't want to go to a place where everybody's eating falafels and hummus, and you don't know when the next terrorist attack is going to happen. You don't know if you're going to get stabbed. You don't know if some rabbi is going to spit on you. I just don't want to go through that. I have enough anxiety in my life. I don't want to go through that. I live in America, where you don't know if you're going to go to the grocery store and some guy is going to shoot you in a mass shooting. You don't know if that's going to happen. It could happen to you here in the United States. It's actually a reality here in America. So there's enough anxiety in the United States. Why would I want to go to a country where there's even more anxiety? Anyway. Yeah. There is this reverence for Jerusalem that's just not healthy, and it's not biblical at all. It's not biblical. There's a verse in Zechariah where the prophet Zechariah, God is speaking through the prophet Zechariah, and God says, I will make Jerusalem into a burdensome stone for all of the nations, and all those who lift up Jerusalem will be cut asunder, will be cut to pieces. So what do we have? We have Muslims who revere Jerusalem, and we have Jews who worship Jerusalem, and they all believe that Jerusalem belongs to them, and they all want to be like the Crusades in the Middle Ages. They want to take the Holy Land. They want to take Jerusalem. And what's that going to lead to? Look at what's happening. The massacre that happened in Israel, the bombing of Gaza, all this stuff is ultimately rooted in this cult of Jerusalem. That's what it is, everybody. It's the cult of Jerusalem. If people just sat down and said, you know what? This city you call Jerusalem, this shithole, you can have it. I don't give a damn. It's just another city. It's just another city. It's not a holy city. The ground isn't sacred. You don't have to go and take dirt from the ground and put it in a jar and take it back with you in your trip back, in your return to America, and you can show your friends, oh, I got dirt from Jerusalem. It's just dirt, just like any other dirt. It's not holy. And if people just realize this, then all these problems will be gone. Because then the Muslims will say, well, Jerusalem's not a holy city, even though Islam wants me to believe this, so Islam is bullshit. Okay, we're done. And the Jews will say, it's not really a holy city, but we can just chill and relax. Okay, whatever. It's done. The Catholics made this mistake. What do you think the Crusades were? The Crusades were Catholics revering Jerusalem. We have to go take the Holy Land. We have to go take Jerusalem. Now, protecting Christians from the Turks, that's a noble deed. Protecting Christian pilgrims is a noble deed. Ain't got no problem with that. But this idea of, we got to retake Jerusalem because it's the holy city, that was the downfall of the Crusades. It was the downfall of the Crusades. And what does God say? Those who lift up Jerusalem will be cut asunder. The Crusades ultimately were a failure. They were a failure. And all this insanity that we see going on, it is people inebriated, intoxicated by this weird, unhealthy, disturbing worship and reverence for Jerusalem. That's what it is. At the root of it all, that's what this is. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're dealing with. So it's all very ugly. You have ugliness. You got the Arabs who are Nazis, Palestinian Nazis who say gas the Jews and they want to kill the Jews and they will exterminate the Jews if they had the chance. And they're backed by Iran, which also wants to destroy Israel. And there's reverence for Hitler there, and Turkey backs the Palestinians, and there's a cult of Hitler in Turkey as well, and there's also a huge cult for Neo-Ottomanism, which was equally horrific. And then in Israel, you have you have a majority of people who are decent people, but you have this substantial ideological faction which is very ugly. It's fanatic, it's anti-Christian, it's racist, and it's continuing to rise as its population rises. And that side is very scary. Very scary. And so as Islamic fundamentalism continues on with its violence, like a bunch of zombies, the Jewish fanatics will gain more ground, and they will use Islamic violence as a way to justify their own fanatical ideology and to justify atrocities. And that's really this whole thing just terrifies. The whole thing just terrifies me. This video is super long, but I really wanted to do this video and get all this stuff off my chest. This stuff has been on my mind all day, and I've been thinking about doing this video all day. So here I am. This video, literally, there's no script, no notes. I've done this video pretty much in it would have been one take if it weren't for my damn cat, but it had to be 2 takes. I had to stop the camera because this cat wanted to get out of my room. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. And God bless you guys.